I always thought burnout was something that happened to other people who didn't plan well enough, who let life get ahead of them. But on a Tuesday afternoon, under the fluorescent lights of Green Tech's design floor, my legs gave out before my excuses did. The world spun, my chest tightened, then everything went white. When I woke up in the hospital, machines hummed around me like judgment. Tubes ran into my arm, heart monitors beeped in an even rhythm. And the doctor told me I'd suffered a cardiac event brought on by extreme stress. They said they called my emergency contacts, my parents, but no one showed up. 3 days passed. No messages, no visits, no familiar footsteps in the hallway, just the quiet truth settling heavy in my chest. Love shouldn't need reminders. When the nurse brought my fully charged phone, I opened it expecting at least a missed call. What I found instead hollowed me out. A notification flashed across the screen. You've been tagged in a post by @Marissa Hartifical, my sister, my family's self-appointed influencer. I tapped it open. There they were, my mother's perfect smile, my dad holding a beer, my sisters posing in sunlight around a picnic table by the lake, all of them glowing with relaxed joy. The caption stabbed harder than any needle in my arm. Family day without the drama. Likes climbed. Comments poured in. My name tagged beneath a photo I wasn't in. A celebration I wasn't invited to. I stared at the screen, heartbeat thudding as the monitor beside me spiked like it could feel the betrayal too. They didn't even notice I was gone. They didn't ask where I was. They didn't care enough to text. I didn't cry. I didn't respond. I didn't even screenshot it. I just let the truth wash over me. If collapsing didn't make them come running, nothing ever would. And that was the moment something inside me finally broke, not my heart, but my silence. Long before the hospital lights and the humiliating Lake Day post, my role in the Hart family had already been written quietly, subtly, and without my permission. I wasn't the oldest. I wasn't the favorite. I wasn't the one with the big personality or the picture-perfect life for Instagram. I was the reliable one, the one who carried everyone. My dad, Daniel, used to work construction until the housing crash swallowed his job whole. It's temporary, he'd say. But temporary turned into 7 years of unemployment and 7 years of my paychecks. Bridging the gap, my mom, Leela, insisted she was managing the household, which somehow meant I covered everything the household couldn't. My sister Marissa, queen of aesthetic living, always had a new venture, a candle line, a wellness podcast, a clothing drop, and I was her unofficial investor, sending quick transfers labeled just this month or I'll pay you back soon. Then there was Ethan, the youngest. The peacekeeper, the one who borrowed quietly and forgot loudly. From the outside, we were the Harts, happy, photogenic, full of smiles and matching sweaters. But behind those curated moments was a machine fueled entirely by me. I worked 60-hour weeks at Green Tech, not because I was ambitious, but because I had to be. Every late night, every overtime shift, every sacrificed weekend was another bill paid, another emergency solved, another crisis smoothed over. Not because they couldn't help themselves, but because they never had to. I didn't notice it happening at first. How each deposit from my account erased a little more of me. How every "sure, I'll help" turned into "of course she will," until one day, I woke up and realized my entire family had quietly rebranded me. Not daughter, not sister, just the financial backbone holding everyone else upright. And the scariest part, I thought that was normal. If carrying the family financially was the first invisible chain, then emotional manipulation was the second, tighter, colder, and far harder to untangle. It didn't start with screaming. It didn't start with insults. It started with gratitude. Soft phrases like, "We're so lucky to have you. You're the strong one, Riley. You always know what to do." Compliments sharpened into expectations. Expectations hardened into obligations. And obligations became debts I never signed up for. Whenever my dad needed money for the mortgage, he didn't ask, he sighed dramatically, pacing the kitchen until I offered help just to stop the tension, crawling up the walls. Whenever mom overspent, she'd sit beside me on the couch, rubbing her temples like she was on the verge of collapse. "I just don't know how we'll manage," she'd whisper, waiting for me to fill the silence with another transfer. Marissa used a different approach, the influencer brand of manipulation. Her messages always started with "Baby, I'm stressing," followed by a sad selfie and a screenshot of an overdue notice. If I hesitated, she'd guilt-trip me with, "Do you really want me to lose everything I'm building?" Ethan, sweet but calculating, leaned on sympathy. He'd call late at night, voice trembling. "I just need a little help to stay in school. Please don't tell Mom. She'll panic." And every single time, I stepped in not because I wanted to, but because I'd been conditioned to believe that their comfort was my responsibility. But the real weapon they used wasn't guilt. It was fear. Fear of being the disappointing daughter. Fear of being the one who abandoned the family. Fear of being labeled selfish, a word my mother wielded like a blade. If I ever tried to draw a boundary, the reactions came instantly. Dad would go silent for days. Mom would cry just loudly enough for me to hear. Marissa would make passive-aggressive posts about unsupportive siblings. Ethan would retreat and say, "I guess I'll figure it out alone." The message was always the same: choose them or lose them. Give or be guilted. Sacrifice or be shamed. I wasn't their daughter. I was their solution. And the terrifying part, they had trained me so well that I didn't even notice the manipulation until the day my body finally collapsed under the weight of their needs. When I finally woke up in the hospital, it felt like surfacing from the bottom of a cold, dark lake. The room was too white, too still, in eerie contrast to the panic that had dragged me under. Tubes snaked around my arms. Machines hummed softly, keeping rhythm with a heartbeat that had almost stopped. A nurse hovered beside me, relief softening her features. "You're lucky," she said gently. "It was a cardiac event brought on by extreme exhaustion." Lucky. The word echoed inside my skull like a cruel joke. She told me they'd contacted my emergency numbers, my parents, multiple times. No answer. Not a single call back. I lay there staring at the blank ceiling tiles, waiting for the hurt to crack through the numbness. But when the emotion finally hit, it wasn't sadness. It was clarity, quiet, razor-sharp clarity. When the nurse placed my fully charged phone in my hand, I almost didn't want to turn it on. But curiosity won. The screen lit up, and the first thing I saw was not a missed call, but a notification, tagged in a photo. I tapped it. There they were. My family, smiling around a picnic table at the lake, sunset glowing behind them like a postcard. Marissa's caption shining beneath their perfectly posed faces. Family day without the drama. The words hit harder than any diagnosis. I zoomed in on their faces, relaxed, laughing, carefree. Not one empty chair. Not one worried expression. No sign that their daughter had collapsed alone on a cold office floor. I didn't cry. I didn't text. I didn't let myself imagine excuses, because in that moment, the truth settled into me like a stone sinking into deep water. They hadn't checked on me because they didn't need me. They only needed what I gave them. And if I wasn't giving, I didn't exist. The heart monitor beside me beeped faster. I exhaled slowly, forcing the rhythm steady again. This wasn't heartbreak. This was awakening. For years, I had believed love was measured by sacrifice. That being needed was the same as being valued. That family failure was somehow my responsibility to fix. But lying in that hospital bed, surrounded by machines instead of human affection, I understood something I had never dared to admit. If I didn't save myself, no one else ever would. And for the first time in my life, I felt the faintest flicker of something unfamiliar, not guilt, not fear, but freedom beginning to form. The morning after the photo, the betrayal, something inside me hardened into resolve. Not anger, not revenge, but a kind of quiet defiance born from survival. The doctors wanted me to rest, but rest felt impossible while I was still financially chained to the very people who had erased me. Grandpa Joe sensed it before I even spoke. "Ready?" he asked, already pulling his worn leather notebook from his jacket pocket. "Ready," I whispered. He sat beside my hospital bed like a strategist preparing for battle. Line by line, he made me list every recurring payment I covered, the invisible lifelines my family relied on, Marissa's rent and subscription boxes, Peyton's tuition installments, Mom's car insurance, Dad's overdue mortgage fees, utilities for a house I hadn't lived in for 10 years, random transfers marked emergency that were never repaid. Seeing it all written out felt like staring at the blueprint of my own undoing. "You've been funding an entire ecosystem," Grandpa Joe murmured. "Time to shut down the power plant." He handed me my phone. The first call was to the bank. "Cancel all external auto payments," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. The clerk hesitated. "All of them?" "Yes, every single one." Then I removed my card from their accounts, revoked payment permissions, locked down access to my credit lines. Each click, each confirmation message felt like reclaiming oxygen. By noon, the dam had been sealed. and right on cue. The cracks formed, a message from Mom. Sweetheart, the car insurance didn't go through. Did something happen? Then Peyton. Rent bounced. Are you okay? Please answer. Then Marissa, ever dramatic. OMG, why did my card decline? Fix it now. Not one message asked if I was alive. Not one acknowledged I had collapsed. Not one apology. Just panic. Because their pipeline had dried up, I set the phone face down, exhaling slowly. For years I thought withholding money made me selfish. But sitting there alive, healing, finally choosing myself, I realized something undeniable. Cutting them off wasn't cruelty. It was CPR on my own life. The first wave of panic hit within hours. Sharp and predictable, like alarms going off in a house full of people who never learned how to change their own batteries. The first call came from Mom. Not "Are you okay?" Not "Why didn't you tell us you were in the hospital?" Just "Your father's credit card got declined at the pharmacy. Did you mess with something?" I almost laughed. Mess with something? I had been saving them for years. Then came Peyton, frantically texting in broken bubbles of panic. Riley, my rent didn't go through, please fix it. My landlord is freaking out, hello. Then Marissa, predictably dramatic. Wow, I cannot believe you're doing this when I have a launch this week. Transfer the money now. None of them knew I had collapsed. None of them asked, but it didn't end there, because when manipulation fails privately, the desperate turn public. That night, Marissa posted a video to her 48,000 followers. Soft lighting, tear-streaked cheeks, the whole performance. Sometimes the people you love change. She sniffled into the camera. My sister's been struggling mentally. She's pushing us away. We're trying to help her, but she's shutting everyone out. A slideshow followed childhood photos of us in matching Christmas pajamas while text flashed. Pray for my family. Mental health matters. Sometimes love hurts. The video exploded. Comments flooded in. Your sister sounds toxic. Stay strong. Queen, family first. I watched it from my hospital bed. The force still in my arm, and felt my heartbeat spike, not from fear, but disbelief. She wasn't just rewriting the narrative, she was weaponizing it. Then Mom posted her own message on Facebook. Breaks my heart to watch my child fall apart. We tried to get her help, but she refused. Screenshots of the hospital photo she stole from my aunt's page appeared beneath her post, captioned, "Please pray for Riley. She's lost." I stared at the screen, stunned. Lost? No, I had finally found myself. But the public didn't know that. People I hadn't spoken to since high school messaged me. Your family is so worried, why won't you talk to them? You should apologize. They're hurting. Apologize. For collapsing? For waking up? For stopping the financial bleeding? The absurdity stung more than the needle ever could. Meanwhile, Grandpa Joe watched quietly from the chair beside my bed, hands folded, jaw tight. They're playing with fire, he muttered. But they forgot the one rule of manipulation: don't leave a paper trail. He lifted his tablet and tapped the screen. There, neatly organized, were copies of the payments I'd made for years: rent, credit cards, tuition, insurance. All in my name. All indisputable. Let them talk, he said. The truth will outlive their performance. And as the messages, tags, and comments kept pouring in, I realized he was right. They were panicking because they had lost control. So they did what people like them always do: turn the spotlight into a weapon. Turn the victim into the villain. Turn the truth into a story they could sell. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid, because I finally had something stronger than their noise: proof, clarity, and the courage to walk away. For 2 days, the storm raged: online videos, sympathy posts, dramatic captions while I stayed quiet, tucked inside Grandpa Joe's calm orbit. But on the third morning, everything shifted. It began with a single envelope. A thick, cream-colored document slid under my apartment door, stamped urgent. I thought it was another medical follow-up until I saw the sender: Northwest Equity and Lending. Grandpa Joe's eyebrows lifted. That's not a hospital, he said, taking the envelope from my trembling hands. When he opened it, the air in the room changed. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't a notification. It was a debt collection notice for a loan I never took. Under borrower, the name was mine. Under co-borrower, the handwriting was unmistakably my mother's. And attached at the bottom was a signature, my signature. Except I had never signed that paper. I felt cold all over. They forged this, I whispered. Grandpa Joe didn't answer immediately. He adjusted his glasses, studied the document, and let out a slow exhale. This isn't just manipulation, he said. It's fraud. He pulled out more papers from his notebook, statements we'd printed in the hospital, accounts I had forgotten even existed. Together, a disturbing picture formed, a credit line I didn't open, a refinancing loan I never agreed to, a joint card linked to my name but used exclusively by Marissa, insurance policies updated with my bank account listed as the payer, and then the worst blow, a home equity loan on my parents' house with my name attached, a house I hadn't lived in for over a decade. A house they had drained dry to fund Marissa's influencer ventures and Peyton's business attempts. My stomach twisted. They used me, I said quietly, like a financial skeleton key. Grandpa Joe nodded grimly. And then blamed you when the house of cards collapsed. He typed something on his tablet, cross-checking dates, pulling transactions, comparing signatures. Within minutes, he confirmed what I already knew deep down. Mom had been signing my name for years. Dad had authorized withdrawals using my information. Marissa had accessed joint accounts without permission. Peyton had benefited from money funneled through my credit lines. My entire adulthood, my stability, my sanity had been compromised, not by strangers, by my own family. When Grandpa Joe finally spoke, his tone was steel. We're done playing defense. This goes to the bank, the credit bureau, and a lawyer. Today, I swallowed hard. What happens now? He placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Now, Riley, we stop the bleeding, and then we hold them accountable. For the first time since collapsing, I felt something new. Not fear, not guilt, determination. The moment Grandpa Joe confirmed the fraud, something shifted inside me. It wasn't rage, it was clarity, clean and cold. My family hadn't just used me. They had gambled with my future, my credit, my stability, and expected me to clean up afterward. But once fraud enters the picture, the narrative changes. And soon, it wasn't just our narrative anymore. Grandpa Joe contacted his old colleague, a retired banking auditor who helped file immediate fraud claims on every forged account. A freeze hit my parents' lines within hours. Then came the credit bureau alerts. Then the bank inquiries. By sunset, financial institutions were circling my parents like wolves around a wounded deer. Meanwhile, online, their carefully curated family image began to crack. Someone had uploaded a stitched video. Left side, Marissa crying into the camera, mascara streaking, saying I was mentally unstable and lashing out. Right side, her post from 4 days earlier. Family day without the drama, taken while I was in a hospital bed hooked to machines. The internet noticed, and the internet did not forgive. Comments poured in. So, she was in the hospital, and you were picnicking? Girl, this ain't adding up. Manipulating your sister for content? Yikes. Where's your accountability video? Marissa tried to backpedal, posting a second emotional apology video that only dug her deeper. Then Peyton's old Etsy reviews resurfaced, complaints about unfinished orders, excuses about family emergencies that now look suspiciously like cash grabs. People started connecting dots. Even my mom wasn't spared. Someone leaked screenshots of her Facebook comments posts bragging about luxury purchases that coincided perfectly with the dates of the fraudulent loans. Their online reputation, once polished and enviable, cracked wide open. But the real blow came 2 days later. A journalist reached out to me. She had been sent anonymous documents, likely by someone online who pieced together the story. She asked gently, "Would you like to comment on the allegations that your family opened fraudulent accounts in your name?" I declined. I didn't need public revenge. The truth was already doing its work. By the end of the week, Marissa lost 2 sponsorship deals. Peyton's design internship quietly removed her from their roster. My father's brokerage clients started pulling out after whispers of financial misconduct. My mother locked her social media accounts and disabled comments. Their empire wasn't built on money, it was built on illusion. And illusions collapse fast under daylight. For years, they controlled the narrative. Now they couldn't control anything, not their image, not their accounts, not the truth. And for the first time, they were forced to face a reality they had spent a lifetime avoiding. Their downfall wasn't my doing. It was their own. By the time the internet finished dissecting my family's fraud, the legal wheels were already in motion. Grandpa Joe didn't believe in half measures. And neither did the attorney. He connected me with a sharp, unshakable woman named Erin Calloway, who specialized in financial abuse within families. She didn't waste a second. "Riley," she said during our first call, "you're not just a victim of emotional manipulation. You're a victim of financial exploitation and forgery. We're going to protect you completely. Within 48 hours, Aaron filed a full fraud claim with supporting documentation at theft reports. For every forged signature, a cease and desist order warning. My family to stop contacting or impersonating me petition. For a protective order due to ongoing harassment, a legal freeze on all accounts connected to my information. The protective order was granted almost immediately. For the first time in my life, there was a legal boundary stronger than guilt, and that's when my family finally broke silence, not with apologies, but with panic. My father's message was all caps: "You're destroying us. Drop the claims." My mother tried her classic guilt-first strategy: "Riley, please. We're family. You don't need lawyers." Then came Peyton. "They're saying we could lose the house. I didn't know they used your name. Please don't ruin us." And finally, Marissa, whose career was collapsing faster than her influencer persona. "If you don't stop this, I'll tell everyone you made me use your accounts. You'll lose your job. Think carefully." I handed every message to Erin. She documented them, filed them, and added them to the harassment case. Then she said one sentence that anchored itself deep in my bones: "You are not responsible for the consequences of their actions." When the court served the official notices, there was no dramatic showdown, no shouting, no final attempt to reconcile, just silence, a clean, heavy silence that marked the end of something that should have ended years ago. The financial pipeline was closed. The manipulation pipeline was severed. The emotional tether was cut, and for the first time in my life, I was legally, emotionally, and financially free from the people who had built their entire stability on my shoulders. When the final legal notices were served and the protective order was filed, the world went quiet, in a way I wasn't used to. Not the suffocating quiet I'd lived in for years, the kind filled with dread, waiting for the next crisis call or guilt-laced message. This was different. This silence felt clean. Grandpa Joe invited me to stay with him for a few weeks in Portland while everything settled. His little one-story house, paint peeling, front porch sagging just enough to creak, had always felt safer than my childhood home ever did. The moment I stepped inside, he said only, "Take a breath. The world can wait." And for the first time in years, I realized I could. We fell into a gentle routine. Mornings were quiet, coffee at his round kitchen table, sunlight spilling across the wood. He read the paper the old-fashioned way, turning each page slow and deliberate, while I sifted through my emotions like debris after a storm. Some mornings I cried without warning, small, sharp bursts of grief. Grief for the childhood I didn't get. Grief for the daughter I had tried so hard to be. Grief for the family I now knew had never truly existed. Grandpa Joe never interrupted, never filled the silence, never rushed the healing. He would simply murmur, "You're cleaning out old wounds. Let them breathe." In the afternoons, we walked slow loops around his neighborhood lined with tall fir trees and houses that smelled faintly of cedar. Some days we talked about nothing at all: weather, the neighbor's dog, the ridiculous number of squirrels in Oregon. Other days, he let me open up piece by piece. "How long did you know?" I asked him once. He scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Since you were 16, he said. "You stopped asking for help and started offering it instead. That's when a kid stops being a kid." I felt that truth settle deep. One evening, he pulled out an old wooden box from his closet. Inside were photos, some I remembered, some I didn't. In every picture were my parents' smiles were bright and effortless. His expression was different, guarded, observant, quietly protective. "You were never invisible to me, Riley," he said. "You were just outnumbered." That night, something inside me unclenched. Healing didn't come as a burst of light or a single breakthrough. It came as a slow unfurling, a softening I didn't know I needed. The more distance I put between myself and the chaos, the more I began to recognize myself again. Not the provider, not the scapegoat, not the emotional punching bag, just Riley, a woman learning how to breathe on her own terms. And with Grandpa Joe by my side, I finally understood. Freedom wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. In the quiet of Grandpa Joe's home, far from the chaos, the guilt, the emotional storms, I finally understood the truth at the heart of my story. Family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by behavior. For years, I believed loyalty meant endurance. That love meant sacrifice. That being the good daughter meant carrying everyone else's weight, even when it broke my own back. But healing with Grandpa Joe taught me something simple and profound. Love that demands self-destruction is not love. It's dependency. Love that shames you into silence is not love. It's control. And love that disappears when you need it most is not love, it's performance. My collapse wasn't just medical. It was emotional exhaustion finally becoming visible. My family's absence wasn't an accident, it was the truth revealing itself. Their panic when the money stopped wasn't grief, it was exposure. And my choice to walk away wasn't cruelty. It was survival. Standing beside Grandpa Joe on his porch, feeling the breeze move through the pines, I realized something else. You don't heal by fixing the people who broke you. You heal by choosing yourself before them, by setting boundaries, by stepping away, by refusing to shrink just to be tolerated. This story isn't about revenge or punishment. It's about clarity the moment you see the difference between love and liability. Final message to the listener: if you've ever been made to feel guilty for choosing yourself, hear this. Protecting your peace is not selfish. Walking away is not betrayal. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save your own life, and if this story touched you, you're not alone.